Welcome, everybody. We are back for another UnDisrupted episode. And Adam, I have a question for you because this is something that's always kind of bothered me from the time I started in education and also administration specifically. How important is a title to you? Like the actual title of your
Wow.
job?
You know what? If I was on Game of Thrones, it would be a huge deal because I'd have one of those Adam File connector of devices, master of connectivity,
Breaker of filters. Yeah, I love it. Yes. Father
internet
of
born.
dragons. Yes, yes. That's good.
But the titles matter when you're dealing with a certain caliber of individual. If you are not with a future minded person, because sometimes we get really creative with our titles in technology, especially, innovation or architect, all these kinds of things that's thrown out there. I remember one school and the title was like internet creator of badassery or something.
I've
Those
seen
are some
those.
really, yeah, those are some cool titles, but if you're not part of this whole trendy environment, do you know what that even means? Does that title carry any weight outside of your really cool position in that district? Because sometimes you get some of these superintendents that come in, they don't care for all that stuff. They just
No.
want somebody to be a director or a chief operating officer, uh,
This,
executive superintendent, that hierarchy structure. So it shouldn't matter, but some people get really caught up in those titles, and if you don't have the right title, then you can't talk, you can't speak, you got to sit at the little kid's table. So if those titles are keeping you from being in the right conversations, then I have a problem with it. If not, go crazy with it.
I mean,
What about you?
I changed I would famously or infamously changed my title on my email and my business cards without any board approval or permission once, and I went from director of instructional technology, and I got tired of the technology part of my title because it was very confusing to people, to teachers. They would that we had a director of technology, and then I was the director of instructional technology, and it's like it didn't matter. They all went to me. And so I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I'm tired of just fixing people's printers. I mean, I can help them with that, but I also wanted to be about learning. So I was like, I'll change it to digital learning. And then I was like, I want innovation in there too, because we were a district of innovation, which is an official moniker here in the state of Texas. And so I was the director of innovation and digital learning. And I changed it to that, sent it on my emails, set it on my business cards. And then about 2 months later, my superintendent called me into her office and she was like, what is this? I noticed you have a title change. When did that happen? I was like, oh, I didn't know that we couldn't do that. I just thought I could just change it. She's like, yeah, no, that takes board action. And I was like, oh, whoops, ask for forgiveness. But she let me keep it. And I think what was interesting for me is like my wife said, once you have innovation in your child, she's like, that's a useless position. You're going to be gone soon because like nobody knows what innovation means. What does it really do? You're not going to be there. And I was like, no, that won't happen. Well, guess what? Fast forward, I'm not there anymore. No. So I don't know. Titles could, I definitely think it matter. I think it depends. And also with vendors, especially, they're looking for the director or the assistant superintendent type
Mm-hmm.
title if they're really going to have someone with buying power. But anyway, I think it's funny with titles. And
I mean, I just like the Puff Diddy line where he goes to the titles. It's like, don't worry. And I don't write rhymes, I write checks. So as long as you can write the check and approve things, that's when the vendors care.
I always wish that I was paid by the letter. I would say that. That's why I went for the longest title. But speaking of long titles, let's introduce our guest, Dana Castine. She's worked with us quite a bit on at Future Age Schools. Dana's going to turn on her camera here and join us. She is the director of math, science, and technology for Florida Union Free School District in Florida, New York. Again, Dana, if we paid
Wait,
you by
what?
the letter,
In where?
you'd be banking. She's in
Oh,
Florida.
rich.
She's in Florida and New York at the same time.
That is a big title.
What are your thoughts on that debate, Dana? What are your thoughts on titles? Because you do have one that's I would say unique in the space. Whenever I've seen your title, I always thought we have directors of math, we have directors of science, and sometimes directors of science and math, and sometimes technology is thrown in, or a director of STEAM or STEM. But you're very spelled out. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I think of titles, I think about Seinfeld sometimes, and you hear the episodes like the low talker and the big hands and
Man
so when I
hands.
think about yeah, man hands, there you go. I think about some of that because quite honestly, what's really a title, right? Builds a lot of layers into districts at times. And when I first started here, I've been in Florida for all of my career. We're a very small school district, and for those out there who think very small, we have about 760 students. So we're very small. With that said, when you talk about titles, I started my career off after teaching as a teacher on special assignment.
HOSA.
And then I was the director of technology integration.
Okay.
And now I'm the director of technology, math, and science. So what does that really mean, and what is a title? I don't know. I feel like there's a job that needs to get done. It's almost like when people have their car parked outside in the parking lot and they have to be the last one that leaves,
Yes.
but yet not a whole heck of a lot gets done.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that with titles as well. It's what you put into it. And although I do have to say that, your conversation before about, in order to get things done, sometimes people are looking for. So that's why I started off with, we're a really small school district. We don't have an assistant superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
I take on some of those duties. The superintendent does, some of the principals do. So our administrative staff is small. And so I'm responsible for curriculum, instruction for, math and science and the technical area, but I'm also responsible for everything technology. So cybersecurity, student data privacy, all of that in a nice little bow that sits on my desk.
And you got your CDL license back there behind you too. So do you drive the bus or no?
Listen, I have a couch in front of me, so if anybody needs to talk, we
Therapy.
do it all, right?
Yes.
Whatever it takes.
We are
whatever my
therapists.
soul plan.
Right. Hey, my thing is like, hey, as long as you call me sir at the bank, I'm good. Or sir or ma'am.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Who goes to the bank anymore, really? When you think about it?
True. That is
Who goes to
true.
the bank? You don't want that call from the bank because that's trouble then. So
Yeah. I get a call. I get a call about the IRS every day. It's funny, something's always happening. And I get about halfway through with my social security number, and then I realize, oh, wait a minute, no.
there you go. Or your car warranty is up. That's
Every day.
Every day.
What is that? Every day I get a spam.
When did that become a thing?
And it's always a number that looks like my number, like sort of.
Yes. So speaking of that, we once had on our house phone, which we still have a house phone, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
We had our house number call our house number one day. That was wild.
That's next level.
Wild. Yeah, next level, totally. And that was a few years back. So
I like texting them back and saying, sorry, I'm unavailable. And then the person's like, I'm sorry, who is this? And I was like, I don't know, you called me. And they're like, no, you didn't. I was like, screenshot, I highlight it. And they're like, oh, thanks for telling me. How did you do that screenshot, by the way? I was like, no, this isn't tech training. I'm just telling you, you called me from this number, but you didn't. Yeah.
See, this has gotten me in my office a couple of times because for those listening, I rarely answer my office phone. If anybody really needs to get in contact with me, they have my cell phone number.
There you go.
But I was looking at my phone and it was like Bank of America. I'm like, what? Bank of America calling me. And I answered, it was a vendor. So I've gotten several of those calls where on caller ID, it'll say something different than what it actually is. It said like Department of Education. And I'm like, okay, the DOE's calling me. Picked up the phone and it was like, hi, what are you doing with your cloud computing? What the?
Yeah.
Who are you?
We got Texas Capitol today. Yeah, I know. Ours was Texas Capitol today. We got Texas Capitol. I was like, that's the Capitol. I was like, Governor, is this you? Release the funds. Come on, Governor. Yes.
And it was like, have you heard about your car warranty?
I know. Hi, we are calling to let you know.
So in your position, there's been a lot of change that's happened in your title, and I'm sure this year you've taken on additional duties other than those outlined. How do you stay motivated and centered in your role that's ever changing, as well as your titles?
Well, that's a great question. How to stay motivated? I think you constantly have to revisit your why and why you're doing the work that you do. Because I think that's critically important. If you don't have a why, or if you haven't revisited your why and you're having those feelings, I think that's absolutely critically important that everyone does that. I think the other way I stay motivated is we have a group of people that we became very close friends with while the time we were in quarantine. So there's a group of us in our county. We're, school districts all over Orange County in New York, not Florida. I know that gets
another tie-in. I was like,
I know. Yeah. So one of the things that we did is we developed a texting group through that. And anytime something comes up, anytime one of us is having a tough day, anytime we're at a point where we need to get information quickly. Like, hey, is Google working all right in your, in your neck of the woods? No, it's not. All right, let's go on to a down detector and see what's going on. Or, so you're not alone. You don't have that sense of being alone and having to deal with some of the challenges and the issues and the problems that could arise. I mean, there's always day-to-day things, right? You get phone calls all the time because we have, currently in our district, we are about 80% in school, 20% home. It's a little bit less than that in person in our middle school and high school. That's due to sports and some other, little pieces that are kind of individual to us. But with that said, we've been in person 5 days a week since September.
Oh.
So, we cleared out all of our classrooms. The principals did a phenomenal job with that, working with their staff. We had committees developed during the summer, and we met and had conversations about, okay, what is this going to look like as the guidance was coming out and as the state was making changes and reopening plans were developed. So we've been here since September, and we had a couple of, I would say, a few weeks that we were on pause right around the holidays when we, everyone saw that spike. Yep. That we sort of had to put things on pause. But with that said, I mean, we're still getting positive cases in our district where there's a group of people that need to be quarantined for a period of time. And I think the vaccine is certainly changing some of that, with the guidance that we have here in New York. But in order to stay motivated, getting back to your question, it's that group of people, it's that crew. Earlier this year, I was having a particularly difficult time, and anytime that happened, we would always send like this little dumpster fire picture, into the group, like, hey, how's your day going? And, I would just find, and it was a dumpster on fire floating down a flooded road. So does it get any better than that? And one of my good friends in a neighboring district sent me, and I'm going to show you what it is because it's awesome. Two things. One friend sent me this little figure, which was, hey.
So explain it. Explain it for the people listening, because not everyone's gonna see the video. So what is it you got there in your hand?
Oh, it's a little figurine of a dumpster on fire, and then another one that says, "It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine." So it's just that camaraderie and that relationship that you can develop with people who can help you. That's one of my motivators. I mean, the Future Ready family is a huge motivator too. I know if I was really having trouble, I could pick up the phone and I could call Adam and I could call Carl, and they would be on the other end of the line, no doubt. So that connection is important. I do think that. I think Adam and I have been a part of a couple different text groups over the years that have kept us all kind of stable when like Google's down or an LMS is down or whatever your ClassLink is down or whatever. It's good to have that connection, because then we're like, am I losing my mind? And then it turns into playful banter, and then you start making friendships out of it, really, even though you don't see each other.
I mean, I love the everything is fine, because that's one of my Zoom wallpapers with the house on fire, and it's a little guy with the coffee.
I've seen that
one of my backgrounds. Yeah, and everyone in my district knows I will hop in a Zoom meeting with that as my background. So I'm unfiltered as it goes to backgrounds. I even had one that said, "Should I quit my job?" when I was in there with the superintendent.
Wow.
Because they just know when that's up there, it just, hey, I'm up to here. There's a whole lot of stuff going on because it's all in fun. And that's the whole thing, that fun banter. You have to have some fun with all this stuff because it will drive you crazy. So definitely having that why is very important in connecting with folks.
And laughing, that comedy piece. And that's, I think, what I enjoy most about, I know the two of you definitely can provide a whole lot of comedy to life, but, that group of people that we've connected with, comedy built into that is certainly, what is it? Laughter is food for the soul. So.
Yep. It's a diffuser. It diffuses situations. I mean, we use it. Adam and I use it quite regularly in my previous job. He uses it, I know, in his job. I mean, I've worked with him at a school district before and seen it. I mean, but it also builds a rapport, which I think is important in this role too, to have that. I mean, you can joke around, but then there's a moment when like, okay, I'm also going to have to put my foot down on something because now you've gone a little too far. You've shared you put your password on a sticky note on your laptop screen and everybody can see it. We got to have some words about why that might not be a wise choice. Yeah.
That humor piece is important. And when you laugh, I'm pretty sure it has been researched that it causes less wrinkles than frowning or crying does. So
that's true. Wow. It's science.
There you go.
So let's pivot a little bit, because we're going to talk a little bit. Laughter parts has a part to play in this next question, which is, talk to me about really good professional learning or really good professional development. So you've been a part of some. You and I, the three of us, have been a part of some. But what do you think makes those stand out? Like both in person, but then also now really with remote, which is really thrown a lot of people off with the channel. Like, am I going to sit through another webinar of someone clicking through slides? Like, how do you differentiate and how do you make those engaging without eating spicy hot wings all the time? So what would be some traits there that would help with things that you've been a part of or things that you've seen that we think would be like, wow, this is a great way to do it?
Well, I would say one thing for sure is try to get out there and attend any of the Future Ready summits or the institutes that are there. That has helped provide lots of connections for us in our school district. And that's one of the ways that we became involved with Future Ready. So the last summit we attended was in New Hampshire. I believe that was in 2019. That's the last year I think any of that was in person. And then we met, I think, in Washington that February. And
right
after
before.
that, the world fell apart. So,
Yep.
you know, after that time frame, I think one of the most important things you can do when it comes to, and I like to call professional development, because no one really wants to hear that they're being developed. You know, I like to coin it as professional learning.
Yeah, I like
because
that
that's
too.
really we're providing professional learning experiences. So with that said, I think asking the questions, putting it out there and finding out what people want to learn about and how do they want to learn about that topic or that idea or that theme is one of the best ways. And that's part of what we did when back in February, March, before we all were, you know, sentenced to our homes, we had to stay there. We asked everyone, hey, what is it that you're looking for? And we developed professional learning sessions that we held. At first, they were 4 days a week for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. And we ended up sort of joining with another school district in the area. And on a daily basis, we had over 120 people in attendance.
Nice.
And all types of questions. How do you use Google Meet? You know, what are some ways that I can enhance math? How do you use Kami? You know, all the different resources that are out there. And that helped tremendously because it helped people to communicate with each other. I was on every single one of those calls, and we actually recorded them and we put them on a remote learning website so people can go back and refer to them. Parents can, you know, students can, anyone who needs the help. So we recorded the sessions. That was incredibly helpful, and it helped bring people together. So we talked about the camaraderie, right? We talked about how do you bring a group of people in. We had, like I said, people from another district in our district. And at the end of these sessions, which we didn't discontinue doing them until the end of the school year, which was June. So we had, you know, over 80 sessions that we did during that time frame. And towards the end, what we started to do is move from the how-to to more a pedagogical approach. And then at the end, we had people from our district sharing with everyone. We had people from other district raising their hand and saying, hey, listen, I did this really cool thing and I'd like to share it with everyone. And it just helped bring people together. During our last session, I kid you not, we had people that almost in tears, cry, please, we're gonna miss you. We're gonna miss seeing everyone. And so, you know, it was for everyone's own safety and health that we took a break during the summer months.
Sanity.
And there you go. Lots of sanity. That's important. So it was definitely something that sticks out in my mind of a huge win. And it helped people ask questions like, hey, you know, we had things set up so that we didn't really have a huge impact with, oh, you know, teacher, I got this email about this and I want to use it. Or people weren't confused about using Zoom or, you know, in Google Meet. They knew what they needed to do because we were sort of leading the way ahead of time. So that when they were implementing these different solutions or teaching kids from home, they were able to do that and use the proper tools and know how to use them.
I mean, it really goes back to what you were saying earlier about those connections, and it's different kind of connections. This virtual time has gotten a bad rap from a lot of folks. Absolutely. Yes, we do need face-to-face. It is important. But as a gamer myself, I get on and I game. I've made friends online that I've connected with. and I get on, we can send text messages, hey, you're getting on the Xbox tonight, but that's my virtual set of friends that I've made. And so from this PL and this period we were in, it was very easy to also foster additional types of relationships. Not to say that face-to-face relationships are bad, but now you've gotten a chance to really grow and make those connections. So I'm really happy you're able to really hit on that with that professional learning component.
Yep, it's important. The power of connection. I think that is one of the most important things we can do in education, aside from making sure you know your why.
Yes.
That's important too.
It's always funny when I have people, when I was used to in the olden days, I'd say anything pre-COVID, PC or BC, then I would say like, oh, I met somebody online, and then people are always like, what? No, not what you're thinking. I didn't meet, they didn't just friend me because my last name is Hooker. I mean, it was, although that happens more than you imagine. Yeah, the amount of weird things that slide into my DMs, you guys would never. I'd have to open that up to I'll make a whole book about it at some point.
Yeah, that happened one time we were in Clubhouse, but that'll be a conversation for another podcast.
That actually did happen in Clubhouse. Yes, it did. Someone offered to slide into my DMs. I won't go into.
Yes.
I was beside myself. I was like, "There's a first time for everything." Someone actually asked those. So that was nice. And that was the phrase used, and I'm like, "Wow, I'm so trendy now."
Yes.
lit, like the kids say.
I don't think they say that anymore.
I'm lit,
Carl.
bro.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, brah. Yeah, I'm lit, bro. All right. I'm still catching up.
All right. So we've had a lot of different things that we had the opportunity to learn during this pandemic. What is something that you want to keep and take from this pandemic era that you will take in your life and keep you undisrupted?
That is an amazing question. And I would have to say that aside from every human being out there, you had no choice but to learn how to navigate your way through I don't want to say challenging time, through adversity, through some real challenges that are out there. And I think that one thing that I focused on a lot, and it's a real personal thing, is social emotional health.
Mm-hmm.
The power of we always say, oh, who's your PLN? Who's in your network? And I almost feel like it's a personal support network. So I'm going to go back to that relationship. I'm going to go back to the collaboration piece. I'm going to go back to the camaraderie, because in my opinion, that's one of the most important things. We get hung up and tied up in the day-to-day. There's a lot to do for people in our roles. There's a lot to do for people in education today. And I think if we keep in mind that we're not in it alone, that's one of the beauties of going to some of the Future Ready events. You realize you're not in this alone, that there are schools and districts and people who are experiencing the same pangs and heartaches, across this nation, that you are yourself. And for me, it's sometimes a challenge because it's me. I get to talk to myself about technology, how to integrate it. And, I'm like, talk to myself. In other places, you can collaborate about that. And so when
people start wondering if you're doing that too much, talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, Dana's doing it again.
I had a great conversation with myself earlier today. Knocked it out of the park. So.
Who won? Yeah, no.
We both did.
Oh, good. See, you came to a mutual agreement. I think we need to have more of that.
Absolutely. But I would say continue to take care of yourself. Find a way to take care of yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup, and you certainly can't help take care of your team. Believe it or not, I do have a team. It's very small, but it's important for me to be cognizant of that, so that I'm leading the way and I'm modeling what that should look like. So for me to take care of me, and then for my team to also be able to take care of themselves and protect them in some of the challenges that are delivered to us every single day. So I would say out of everything, that would be one of the most important. Take care of yourself so you can help take care of others.
I like that. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's true. I mean, it starts with you can't change others if you can't help yourself, right? In a lot of ways. So take care of yourself first, and I think that's something that we all got to learn through this whole thing.
Well, they teach us that every time you get on an airplane. When those things come down, they're like, put your mask on first before you put on somebody else's.
Right.
Honestly, I would love to get to a point where I don't have to be worried and concerned about putting that mask on myself before anyone else. Let's get ahead of it and try to get to the point where, we don't even have to do that.
Right.
But you're right. It is important.
Well, in Texas, we don't wear masks, but that's a different thing. Okay, so thank you. This is Dana Castine. You can find her on Twitter at Dana Castine, DanaCastine. And I'm going to try to do your title all in one breath. Here we go. She is Director of Math, Science, and Technology at Florida Union Free School District in Florida, New York. There we go. Thank you, Dana, for joining us today on UnDisrupted.
Dana, I do have one quick question.
Uh-oh.
Are you guys considered Floridians?
No, we're the, believe it or not, in the state of New York, which is, not as big as Texas. We don't go that big and go home, but it's a fairly large state, right? There's 2 Floridas in New York, believe it or not. There's a village and a town, and it's amazing. So when we talk to vendors and we tell them, where are you from? Florida, New York. They go right to Florida and they say, I can't find your district here. Are you looking in New York? So yeah. Believe it or not, there's 2.
That's a great trick. That's another Elaine reference from Seinfeld there. I'm just going to give you this phone number here from the side of the building, vendor. It's Florida. Yeah. See if you can find me. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
I was going to say, we are home of Jimmy Sturr, who is the Polka King. And also, we are known as the onion capital of the world.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of layers to that there.
And so folks in Vidalia, Georgia will have something to say about that. I know that much.
I'll leave you with that pondering.
That's good. There's so many layers to Dana. You guys probably that are listening out there know that now as you hear. Yes.
I see what you did there with the layers. I see that.
There you go. I see what you did there.
Thank you so much, Dana, again, for joining us on UnDisrupted. And our listeners out there, please be sure to subscribe. Give us a review. It's that 5 stars. We always like that as well. We might even give you a shout out in a future show. This has been the UnDisrupted podcast brought to you by Future Ready Schools. He's Adam, and you can follow him at AskAdam3.
And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Mr. Hooker. And remember, we're better together.
And we are better undisrupted.
UnDisrupted.
I was way too fast that time. Let's try it again. We are better UnDisrupted. That was closer.
Nah.
All right. I'll let it go. This podcast is made possible by the generous support of Amazon Web Services.